Hello, I'm Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, the host of Nifty Business, where we highlight NFTs and explore Web 3.0 as we move from pure speculation to creating real-world value. So I've been running ragged for the past 3 months trying to get everything aligned so that I can make my full-time arrival in Web3 before January, and I've been working 12 to 13-hour days as far as my day job in the family business, and I'm trying to maximize every amount of time I have during my breaks. I'm doing the research, and then, of course, when I'm trying to interact with people, doing this on Twitter, I'm doing Twitter Spaces, I'm doing the recordings of the podcast, I'm writing the newsletter, and as if that wasn't enough crazy, I've also decided to write a chapter for a friend's mental health book. So that was crazy in itself, so we're preparing for the launch, getting all of that done. Although I'm only responsible for writing one chapter, we're all doing the promotions, trying to get everything out and finalize that, get our websites in line for the actual launch and all the party and the marketing that we're going to do in the next few weeks. In addition to that, I joined forces with Jay Tunes. I've been speaking about him quite a bit since I interviewed him, hanging out with him, having spaces, and all of that. So this more content is being created. I've been hanging out with the hoodlums, and as a result of doing this, obviously I'm doing the podcast and doing all this content, and that is something that he needed for the project. So, of course, I teamed up with him for that, helping him to create some content, make some connections, because the one good thing about being in all these different communities and projects is that I know a lot of people, and having joint Twitter Spaces and all of those things will come into us very handy. Not to mention I have a background in designing websites and what have you. So all of these different things I'm just juggling, doing for myself, doing for the business, and then of course now doing it for the project and the podcast itself, which is also a business, a part of my whole Web3 business, aside from the family business that I have. So needless to say, a lot is going on. And so Sunday is usually my days off, and I am so excited to just get to Sunday. I don't have to go to the shop. And as far as yesterday, we had a church trip, so that did take out a huge chunk of the day, and it was just nice to just get away, go into the country, and have some relaxing times. But of course, we get home, and during this whole time, all this crazy stuff, my wife has been a total trooper. She is not saying like anything as far as discouraging, because she sees what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to build, and she's very supportive despite everything being chaotic. But I truly believe that in the midst of all this, I'm almost neglecting her in a sense that it's like she's getting the leftover parts of me, which is terrible, right? I mean, that's just horrible to say. Of course, I make a movie date with her. We're watching Spider-Man on Netflix and all of that. So of course now, by the time I watch the movie, it is Sunday evening and it is time to record the pod. I still have some time. So I get to it and I start to brainstorm as to how I'm going to organize the story, because I have a list of running stories, all the different things that I'm trying to research and understand. And then what I usually do is I have a Google Documents with my titles, and then I make bullet points basically outlining that particular episode. That is my workflow, is how I'm going to do that. So now I get to time to record the episode, pick out the topic that I'm going to read, and guess what happens? First of all, did you know that somebody can speak and record and still sleep? If that is news to you, it was news to me as well. And you don't really notice how bad it is until you actually listen back to it. And somehow you can speak and sleep. It's just that it doesn't really make sense. So, of course, I looked at the clock and I said, you know what? This is definitely not going to go. I'm going to put out a horrible episode if I record in this condition. So what I'm going to do is I take a power nap, and I still have plenty of time left in the evening, and I'll be able to get the episode out. After taking my little power nap, I get back and I'm ready to record and everything. And at this point, it's almost like I didn't have my glasses on, which is pretty funny because actually I just have astigmatism and I have a very slight blur as far as when I'm doing things, looking at screens and what have you. I can actually read without my glasses. However, things were just blurry altogether right now. And I'm like, okay, this is not good. I am still just really out of it. I am zoning out. My head is definitely in sleep mode, but physically I'm here, and this is not going well. So I said, all right, no problem. The day is not over. I'm just going to have to get some sleep, because also in addition to that, I have some client work that I'm supposed to do by tomorrow morning, or I should say by today, which is Monday morning at this point. And I'm going to have to knock this out in addition to getting the podcast done. So if I take this nap, a better nap than my little 10, 15, 20-minute power nap, then I'll be better optimized to be able to do all of those things that I have to do, because that's going to be a few hours of work well, and it's going to carry me into the next day. Okay, no problem. This is something I'm very used to doing. So what I decide to do is I decide to just shut off the light, and I'm getting ready to just go maybe try to get 2-3 hours of sleep before returning to do the podcast. Now, this is where things start to get a little interesting. At this point, my wife walks in and she is a little bit alarmed because the door is wide open. It's kind of strange because although it felt like I was sleeping for hours, all sorts of different things happen. Normally it happens in a different way where like you blink and it's like the following morning. In this case, only a few minutes have passed because I looked at the clock before I laid down, and then I look at the clock now, I was like, it just happened, and the door is wide open. My wife thinks like a burglar came in, tried to take out some things and whatever, and I'm trying to calm her down and say, no one could have come in. It was definitely me. I don't know how or why, but for some reason, when I was passing it, maybe when I was turning off the light, I don't know exactly what happened, but it had to be me to open it. But she's convinced that someone's in the place, and I'm trying to convince her no one's in the place. She wants me to run the camera, and I'm saying, don't worry about it. It definitely was me. And she's like, yeah, but you don't know, someone could be hiding in here. But I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, right by the door, I have my camera, I have my computer and some other gadgets and some things that were out. They were not put away or anything. So I was like, if someone was coming in here to do whatever, steal things, grab things, what they wanted was right there, and I didn't put it away, I didn't pack it away or anything. So why wouldn't they just grab that? None of this makes any sense to her, and she wants me to run the camera. So I take out my phone, I'm trying to log into the whole thing to actually give her peace of mind. And of course, remember I just said my eyes are all blurry, I'm like disoriented. First of all, I couldn't even remember my password. I'm trying to log into this thing, and it's just not working. My eyes are just not working. The glare from the phone is killing me, and I'm just like, oh man, this is a total mess. And in hindsight, I'm like, you know what? I was probably sleeping at this point as well. Sure, I was having that conversation with my wife and what have you, but I couldn't log in, and I was just so out of it and disoriented that most likely I was still half asleep. It's like physically, my body was interacting, doing some things, and mentally, I don't know where I was because I could not remember my password to log into this camera. So this is when things get interesting. Remember I just said that usually what happens is you take a blink and hours fly by. This time, hours really flew by. It was not 5 minutes. And when I woke up, I realized that I barely had enough time to do all of my client work and turn that in before the deadline. And on top of that, I have the podcast and some other things that I wanted to do personally. So with that said, I didn't want to just cut corners and put out an absolutely horrible episode because I knew anyhow I recorded in that condition, I was just going to rush. I was just trying to get through all of my notes, and it wasn't going to be a well thought out, cohesive thing. And I knocked out the client work, what have you, and I knew that I had an amazing interview lined up for today, which I'm going to also still release today. I'm going to edit that, get that out. So it's going to be one of those double days. And this happened a couple times when, number one, I had my equipment locked up in a vehicle, and another time when the company that I host the podcast with, they were updating their system, what have you. This would not let me upload. And then I believe a third time when, oh yeah, that was most recently, when I uploaded the file. However, it was saved as a draft and the date was set incorrectly and it didn't release on time. So this is one of those double days. So I know this is a little bit different than I normally do, and this is not leading off with the NFT stories and the Web3 and everything, and giving you a little glimpse behind the scenes, telling you what's going on, and it really brings back to everything. It doubles back. I open this thing up by saying that I'm helping to write a chapter in a mental health book, and trying to get all of that in, and help to promote all of that, and working with NFT projects, putting out the Web3 content, running Twitter Spaces, and all of this stuff. And it comes back to just trying to live a balanced life and try to, of course, not neglect your family and your kids and everything that you're trying to do in order to dive into whatever project it is. And in this case, as I said, I'm balancing my day job with my aspirations, if you will, and trying to do all of this. And it was very taxing on me physically and mentally at the same time. And this really has made me even appreciate the thing that I wrote for that book, just the irony of life and everything that was going on. And we haven't even really fully started promoting that because it's not up yet or anything. We just have all the material put in and it is ready for publish. However, mental health has always been something I've been passionate about. I've done summits and workshops, and I've taught what has helped me through the years and what have you. And I realize that is something that is very valuable within Web3. And with all these things, with the ups and the downs, just within the last week, we saw Ethereum go back up to 2,000 and is falling right back down right now. And a lot of people were just put on that roller coaster thinking that we're going to the moon again. Of course, we started to see the buzz back on Twitter. Everyone's getting all excited. And then a couple days later, everything starts to fall again. So people are on this emotional roller coaster of a ride because they thought their bags were coming back to them. And then here it comes falling again. And a project that I've been following for quite a while now has been very active in Web3, and I'm trying to set up an interview to bring her on the show. The founder of that, the one who's always doing these Twitter spaces and what have you, is Happy Nation. And Happy Nation is all about mental health and well-being and all of those practices that is going to not just help an individual to cope with stress, but help someone to actually live a better and more fulfilled life, be able to serve those around them, and just impacts in multiple ways. It just ripples out into every area of life and aspect, because as I explained with mental health and the brain and everything, a tired brain sees vision just not so well, can't remember passwords, falls asleep while recording podcasts, all of these different things. And I know this story is a little hectic, and I'm making it sound very light and happy and positive. It's because that's just generally my personality, but truthfully, that is not good. As I opened up with the whole thing, am I saying that my wife is very supportive of everything that's going on right now, but all the hours of everything, if you add all those hours up, it's like, wait a minute. Do you have 24 hours in your day? And yes, I have 24 hours in my day, just like everyone else. And the only thing that can be cut is really my sleep. And that is obviously a long-term recipe for disaster. So this has to be very short-lived. And in my mind, everything's going to come to a balance in January, because I don't have to balance the whole day job. But this is nothing new. This is not unique to just me. There are countless people in this space right now, and you might be one of them, that is trying to keep up with everything that's going on. Whether you're trying to build and launch your own project, you're trying to get noticed by a particular influencer or a developer or a project manager or community. And at the same time, you have your family, your day job, you have your bills, you have your own mental and physical health to deal with. So there's a lot of things going on, not to mention anything can happen if you have children or older parents and all those things, and trying to balance all those relationships and prioritize what is important is just a crazy balancing act. And as I also mentioned, is trying to make that transition to Web3. And in order to do that, I'm also taking on clients. I'm trying to balance all of this stuff with my day job. And it is very hectic. And a lot of people are in that case, because anyone that really comes into Web3 full-time, just right off the bat, unless you're a coder working for a big project or a big company, it is not really guaranteed income. You don't know where things are going to go up and down. The majority of people are failing. Yes, there are the stories of minting out and going to the moon, making $1 million, but that is the exception to the rule. It is not the norm. And even this weekend, I'm looking by this project by the name of Lazy Apes. The Lazy Apes Yacht Club. And that might sound familiar to you. That is because it is a combination of the Lazy Lions and the Bored Apes Yacht Club. And the founder, Loudmouth, actually holds both of these and is very active in all those communities and everything. And if you look at the Twitter spaces and everything that's going on and how all the influencers and all his connections and everyone really showed up for this thing, you might look at that and say, wow, this thing is about to mint out at 0.08, and that's going to net over $1 million. Assuming ETH is going to bounce around 1,500 or so, that is $1.2 million, and that's not too shabby. And that's only a couple of days. This is a 10,000 project, but as I said, this is a very influential people, has all these connections in major projects such as the Lazy Lions and the Bored Apes, and this is what's rolling out. And the artwork is actually hilarious to me personally. It's basically a bored ape with a lion's mane. Some people are going to absolutely hate on this, say this is nothing original about this and all these crazy things, but to me, it's just very comical, right? It's a part of meme culture and what have you. They have their whole thing, but I'm not here to speak about, hey, go mint this project or anything of that nature. The reason why I'm sharing this is to share, yes, there are those exceptions to the rules. Someone like this who has all the connections, has already put in the time, built the network, and rolls out this project and is going to be a success, quote unquote, overnight. But that really is the exception to the rule. And even though it might seem like overnight success, this is literally a guy that has been in the culture for quite a while now and is known by these communities. It's not even truly an overnight success. So it is pretty wild, but just to remember that the reason why I brought up all these projects and everything is everyone's trying to chase that next thing and trying to be just like this guy who's about to make $1 million if this thing mints out fully. And everyone really wants to just be the next one. And in order to do that, it takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time, and it could be a lot of wear and tear on someone's mental health. So that is why I'm really excited to try to connect with Happy Nation, bring her on the show, and really explain what her mission is, what she's been doing in the space. And I highly recommend, if you don't know who she is, or the project, I should say, that you should just check them out. They hold Twitter spaces all the time, always guest appearances in multiple communities, and can't wait to have her on the show. But until then, And when I say this, I'm actually speaking to myself. Know that there's always enough to go around, and if you don't take care of your own body and mental health, regardless how much there is to go around, you're not going to be able to enjoy it. And although hard work is a badge of honor and going sleepless nights and all of those things is really celebrated within the entrepreneurial community, I'm here to tell you that it is dangerous long-term doing that for an extended period of time. And sometimes it is just great to take a step back, relax, take a deep breath, maybe a nap or real sleep, and come back to it. But with that said, I'd love to know your thoughts about all of this, Happy Nation, and anything I said during this. If there's anything I could do to possibly help, maybe point you to a nice, positive community that you might be able to hop in a space with and talk about different things, or clear the space, or a book or a resource, please feel free to reach out to me. As usual, I just want to thank you for taking time to listen to this and being a part of everything as we're learning and building Web3 together. So until next time, which will be actually later today, I'm going to edit that episode, an amazing interview that I did earlier, and get that up by tonight. So until then, later. The Nifty Business Arrow is not investment advice. It provides insights and information within the space. As with anything, please do your own research before making a decision whether you're making an investment or a purchase.